Hello and welcome to the podcast Singing Mindfully. Today is episode 1. I'll start things off today by telling you a little bit about myself, what this podcast is all about and what I hope to achieve, and just how the act of mindfulness training can greatly enhance and improve one's vocal technique. With all that being said, let's get started. Hello and welcome. My name is Holton Johnson. I've been a singer, actor, and performer for the last 40 years, and for the past 10, I have practiced mindfulness training. And it was right around that time that I discovered this incredible connection between mindfulness meditation and the act of singing. All work synergistically. They all combine together to make you a better singer. And that's what this podcast is all about. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about me, you can go to my website, which is holtonjohnson.com. That's HOLTONJOHNSON.com. So what exactly is mindfulness meditation? Well, in a nutshell, mindfulness meditation is a mental training practice that teaches you to slow down racing thoughts, let go of negativity, and calm both your mind and your body. Mindfulness techniques can vary, but in general, and for the purposes of this podcast, mindfulness meditation involves a breathing practice and awareness of body and mind. So what do you think? Sounds like something that could be very beneficial in your singing practice. And you know what? You'd be right. So, for this first episode, I'll walk you through briefly my process of mindfulness meditation, and then how I connect it to my daily singing routine. In later episodes, I'll get much more thorough, not just in the mindfulness process, but most importantly in proper singing technique, during which I will sprinkle in little bits of wisdom from my mindfulness practice, along with some tips and tricks to make the act of learning to sing easier, more enjoyable, and more dynamic and grounded. So even though we're going to start with learning about mindfulness meditation, eventually we'll branch out into more detailed singing technique while always keeping in the back of our mind that clear, centered idea of mindfulness. Let's get started with a quick overview of my mindfulness meditation practice. Keep in mind, this is something I always do prior to starting to sing. You do this, and then you start your daily singing routine. I also highly recommend you get a pen or pencil and a piece of paper and write this down, as I'm going to be skipping through some of the more repetitive aspects just to keep things flowing quickly, and then you can go back at a later time and actually practice this. First things first, you'll need to find a quiet place to meditate. Someplace hopefully out of the way where you will not be disturbed. You may sit in a chair as long as your back is straight, not hunched over. Shoulders are comfortably back and lowered. Or if you have a cushion, you can sit on the floor on a cushion, again, as long as your back is upright. So what we're going to do here is count our breaths. But first, sit in your chair, sit on your cushion, take 2 comfortable, low, deep breaths. Just let the air in. This is just to allow you to relax. You're just letting it into your lungs, and then you're going to let it out. You're going to let the air in deeply, and then sigh it out. One more time, and then sigh it out. Now that you've become a little more calm, gently close your eyes. For this practice, we're going to be inhaling and exhaling through our nose only. So gently close your mouth, gently close your lips. Keep your jaw nice and relaxed. No tension. Now the purpose of this is not to try to place your breath in a certain position or to breathe deeper than you normally would. You're just going to breathe as you would regularly. So you're going to take a nice inhale and then an exhale. And once you've inhaled and exhaled once, that's one cycle. So I want you to say to yourself in your mind, 1. That's counting your breath. For this lesson, we're going to try to count to 10. If it helps to focus, what I like to do sometimes is as I'm inhaling, I will feel the cool breath of the air right at the tip of my nostrils as it enters into my nose. That is just a physical sensation that I can focus on. Same thing as you exhale, warmer air is going to be exiting through your nostrils. You can feel it, and you can focus on that if the idea of actually concentrating on the entire breath cycle is a little too much. Now the trick here, or the difficulty often, is while we are inhaling and exhaling and counting, thoughts are going to enter our mind that have nothing to do with our practice. That's just human nature. That just is what is going to happen. And instead of trying to push those thoughts away rigidly, just let them dissipate. I like to think of them as clouds moving through the sky. Everybody has thoughts. They enter and they leave. So a thought comes up. I need to make dinner for my family tonight, and I totally forgot about shopping. That's fine. But then go back to your breath. Your breath is always there. It's your center. You breathe your entire life. It's your friend. It's your central focus. So gently bring your mind back to your breath. Continue to count. And when you've reached 10, stop. Take another nice deep breath. Become more aware of the surrounding sounds if there are any, and gently open your eyes. And congratulations! If this is your first time, you've just gone through the process of mindfulness meditation. That's it. That's all there is to it. So now you're just about ready to start with your daily singing practice, whatever it happens to be. I'm not going to be rigid and tell you exactly how one should warm up. I think that's an individual process. If you're a brand new singer and you're just learning, of course, I'll walk you through a few things that I like to do, but some people are very particular about how they like to warm up and it works for them. So far be it for me to change that in you. One thing you should do, though, at this point is stand up, shake out your arms and your legs, roll your shoulders back, roll your shoulders forward, keep that relaxed but steady, centered feeling that hopefully you are having during the mindfulness. You're not a rag doll, but you're also not a soldier, firm. Things are soft but engaged. One thing I will talk about that I feel very strongly about is proper posture, especially when you are practicing and warming up the voice. It is vitally important. You can spend 30 minutes practicing and warming up, and it'll all be for naught if you're not practicing correctly. It's all about quality, not quantity. So the first thing that I like to do once I stand up and I've relaxed and my shoulders are kind of low and back a little bit, I will raise both of my arms up over my head so my hands are touching, and then without inhaling or exhaling, lower them back down to my sides, and you'll notice your chest feels different. The whole rib cage is a little more open. It's not rigid and it's not pushed out. It's not tense. Underneath your arms, you'll notice the sides of your rib cage and also along the back, which is very important, have opened up. That is the posture one should have when they're singing, practicing all the time. Always be aware of that. If in the middle of your warm-up or if in the middle of your practice session, you feel your chest is sinking, things are getting tight, stop, raise your hands over your head, lower them down again, remind your body of that feeling of openness. That is of paramount importance. Just as a side note, you'll also notice that over time, as you meditate more and you count your breaths more, eventually your chest will kind of just naturally put itself in that position. So you'll already be there. When you stand up and get ready to sing, you'll notice your chest is already nice and open. It's a nice little added benefit to the meditation. Your feet should be about shoulder width apart. I personally like to have my right leg slightly forward of my left leg. I'm right-handed, so it feels natural that way. It gives your body a little bit of forward momentum by doing that. Bend your knees slightly, maybe rock up and down a couple times. You don't want your legs and your knees to lock out. So we're ready to start. I'm not sure how you, again, warm up, whether you start right in with scales, whether you do some sighing or some lip trills or some tongue trills. If it works for you, that's fantastic. Here comes my first piece of important advice. Something that I've learned years ago that has helped immensely, and that really is a central core to correct singing, in my opinion. People call it a bunch of different things. I call it finding the cool spot. If you're a singer and if you've been singing for a while, you may have heard that expression. You may have heard the expression of sing with an inner smile, raise your cheekbones, pretend that you're smelling a rose. Those are all the same thing, just different ways of expressing it. So let's start with something that I find easy to get a grip on, an inner smile. So with your mouth closed, you're not going to have a big grin on your face. It's really up in your cheekbones, under your eyes. You're just going to feel them raised slightly. Like you're smiling, but it's an inner smile, if you understand. If you're looking yourself in the mirror, you almost wouldn't see it. But you can feel things raising up, the muscles raising up a little bit in your cheekbones. So with that sensation in mind, I want you to take a nice, low, relaxed breath. Inhale. And at the very beginning, when you're starting this, what I'd like you to do when you inhale is I want you to sigh. I want you to hear and feel that breath entering your body. That will greatly help find that cool spot. And when you do, what you're going to notice is in the back of your throat, behind your hard palate, even below and behind your soft palate, you're going to feel cool air. That's the cool spot that I referred to earlier. And one way to get the throat open is for that inner smile, pretend you're smelling a rose. There's an instantaneous automatic reaction to your body when you're doing something like that. Your throat opens up. Breathe in, you feel that cool spot. Remember that spot. That spot will be the center to everything. So now when we exhale to sing a scale when we're warming up, we are going to sing from that spot. Pretend that the sound is originating from that spot. Not in front of it, not far behind it, not way up in your forehead, but right there in that cool spot. Here, I'll demonstrate a little bit so you can kind of hear the difference between the two things. Quick little 5-note scale, no soft spot. I'm thinking forward placement. I'm thinking it in the forehead. Simple 5-note scale. Now with the cool spot. Did you hear a difference? In my humble opinion, it's kind of night and day. The second scale is more open. It has more resonance to it. It actually had a little more volume to it too, just naturally. It was a little rounder. Over time, the second one will serve you so much better because the voice is open. Especially as you start going up in the scale, you'll notice a huge difference. The first scale, it was, in my opinion, too bright, too wide open in a bad sense. Not that the throat was open, but the vowel was open. And that is very typical of tenors especially, but young singers. They want to try to keep things bright, so they sing like that. There's no modification of the vowel naturally happening. It's just very bright. And what happens is as you get higher and higher and higher, that went up to an F right around someone's break. When you get above that, things get pinched off, things get narrower. Even if it sounds good to you, believe me, it doesn't sound good to the audience. The second one was rounder. When I got up to the higher note, the vowel automatically started to round a little bit, started to modify slightly, which it has to do when you're getting up into the higher part of your range. And all I did was inhale to the cool spot, exhale from that spot towards the back, and the sound beam is going to, I know what you're probably saying. I think I know what you're worried about, because this is what I was worried about when I was first learning this, is that if you quote unquote sing from the back of your throat, everything's going to be muffled and you're going to choke on everything. And that is not what I'm telling you to do. The spot that you're singing from is not in the back of your throat. It's not like in the back of your neck back there. And your head is still open. Your throat is still open. The sound beam, which is a straight line, is still coming from your vocal cords, going up and leaving your head. That's physics. It has to do that. You're actually restricting that from happening when you close your throat down a little bit and you try to focus the sound on your forehead or in your nose, because the sound wave cannot bend. Again, that's just physics. It's a straight line. It can radiate in your head, but it can't bend through your nose and out into the audience. That's just an impossibility. So what I'd like you to try to do is exactly that. During your practice, and it'll be difficult because if it's a brand new concept for you, you're going to be apprehensive at first. I totally understand that. But I want you to give it a try. I want you to start off with a little meditation to relax you, to get your breath relatively low in the body. Your chest is in a comfortably raised position because of the hands being up over your head. You're smiling, which is a nice thing in the first place. It should make you feel good. You have a little inner smile. You're taking in that nice, lovely breath. You're feeling that beautiful, cool air, and you're singing from that. You don't have to sing so high. You can do a 3-note scale. You could do a siren. People like to do that to warm up. That's all very lovely. But what I want you to feel, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. This is still just the first episode. But the sensation should really be, depending on how high up you are singing, the sensation is the sound going up and hitting the hard palate and going straight up there. You're not going to feel it in your nose. If you feel it in your nose, you're nasal. You're going to get a nasal sound if you're trying to put it into your nose. Oftentimes, even if you try to put it into your forehead, I understand the good intentions that teachers have when they talk about that. Unless you've been singing for a long time and you really understand what they're talking about, it can be dangerous. So up and up to around probably an E. If you're a tenor or a soprano, an E, perhaps an F, you're going to feel that sound hitting your hard palate. And as you go higher, the sound beam travels backwards. And instead of muffling your sound, instead of choking on it, what it's going to do is, if you keep your throat open, is it's going to open the sound up. Your sound will be even more dynamic. Think of the sound going from your hard palate to your soft palate as like an envelope opening up. You're actually adding more space to it. You're not choking yourself. And it's subtle. It's very subtle. We're talking about the process of maybe an inch moving. You're not trying to sing back there in your back of your throat. You're going to sing like Kermit. We don't want that. Baritones, mezzos, it'll be slightly lower. It would be maybe a D, but it's still relatively high. You can still probably sing a C or a D and still feeling that in the hard palate. The important thing to remember, and I don't think this is rambling, I think this is actually an important point, is if you allow, and I'm going to say this a lot during this process, if you allow the sound beam, I will call it, to do its thing, to travel where it needs to travel based on an open throat, and I'll get to breathing and support and all of that later on. But if everything is working correctly, the sound beam is going to go where it needs to go. It's just an acoustical phenomenon. You can't make it go somewhere. And if you try to, you're setting yourself up for disaster. So you will notice by nature, what it wants to do is travel back slightly. And you'll hear that, especially if you're a high-voiced singer, when you're getting up into the higher voices, A, B flat, you'll feel this wonderful open sound. It will feel darker to you, especially if you're a lyric, lighter singer. It will feel darker, but I promise you it is not too dark. It is not darker than your natural voice. It is exactly where your natural voice should be. And to your own head, it feels dark, but to your teacher and to the audience, it just sounds nice and full and round, and that is the goal of all singers. So I think I'm going to cut this episode a little short. Because it's the first episode, I don't want to overwhelm you with too many things. That's very easy to do. We've gone through some great things. I've walked you through an initial meditation of counting to 10 to relax you. I've talked to you about having your chest nice and open and relaxed through the hands over the head. I've talked to you about the cool spot, and I'll bring it up again because, again, I really feel it is one of the most important aspects of singing that people do not focus on at all. Instead, people try to adjust their sound by listening to themselves inside their own head. You can't. You just can't do that. You hear other singers, that's what you're doing. You're hearing famous, well-coached, talented singers, and you say, I want to emulate that, and I think they're doing this by getting that sound. I can guarantee you they are not. So I think we've been through quite a bit. If you enjoy some of what I've had to say, I hope you subscribe to this podcast so you'll be the first to know about the next upcoming episodes. And in those upcoming episodes, I'll dive much deeper into breathing, more on posture, the idea of support, and how that whole concept is often misunderstood and misinterpreted. I'll take you through my own personal warm-up routine to get a better idea of how I warm up before singing, and so much more. So please subscribe and stay tuned. And before I forget, if you have any questions, thoughts, suggestions for upcoming episodes, please contact me at the following email address. It is contactme, contactme, at singingmindfully.com. It would be greatly appreciated, and I'll try to answer any questions that you may have. So until we meet again, this is Holton Johnson. I wish you well, stay safe, and keep singing mindfully.